The lawyer lied to the adopted child about the will, but he never knew this.
Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
At Mercy General Hospital, droplets clinging to the windowpane reflected the image of a young woman slumped over, her hands trembling with each heartbeat. "Amelia, you should get some rest. You haven't closed your eyes in 2 nights," came the gentle voice of the attending physician, Dr. Julian Harris. Amelia Rogers lifted her head. Her eyes were bloodshot, yet no tears fell. She stared through the glass window into the emergency room, where Stephen Rogers, the adoptive father she loved more than anyone in the world, was being desperately tended to by the doctors. "I'm not going anywhere, Dr. Harris. I promised I'd be by his side, until the very end." The doctor sighed and quietly walked away. Less than 10 minutes later, the continuous beeping of the heart monitor stretched into a flatline. The alarm rang out. Nurses rushed in like the wind, trying to resuscitate him. But it was all in vain. Time of death, 6:17 a.m. Amelia stood frozen. She walked heavily into the room. The man who had raised her for 18 years from a baby abandoned at a train station now lay still, his face eerily peaceful. She took his cold hand and whispered, "Dad. I'm here." I stayed. 2 weeks later, at the downtown office of attorney David Oliver, a closed-door meeting was held. The room smelled of old mahogany and stale paper, creating a heavy, distant atmosphere. Amelia sat alone at the far end of the long table, clutching a worn leather notebook Stephen had once given her. Her eyes were fixed ahead, where David Oliver was organizing documents. Across from her sat 3 people, the ones called Stephen's biological children. William Rogers, the eldest, in his 50s, CFO of Rogers Property Holdings. Isabella Rogers, the second child, a powerful businesswoman and organizer of large charity events. Lucas Rogers, the youngest, a gambling addict constantly caught in womanizing scandals. "It's been a long time, hasn't it, Amelia?" Isabella said sweetly, though her eyes were cold. "Still clinging to that cheap bag? Suits you." "Thanks, Isabella," Amelia replied without looking at her. "I've kept everything Dad gave me." William smirked and said to Lucas, "Dad sure knew how to spend money. Picking up an orphan and raising her like a princess. Well, it's over now." Lucas chuckled mockingly. "Bet she thinks she's getting a big slice of the pie. Dream on." Amelia clenched her fists under the table. Her heart pounded. But she remained silent. She believed in Stephen. She believed her father wouldn't leave her with nothing. The door to the office opened. David Oliver entered in a neat black suit, holding a thick file. He looked at no one but Amelia, his eyes passing over her with a strange expression. After a few formal greetings, he began reading the will. "I, Stephen Rogers, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this will to distribute my estate after my passing." Amelia nodded quietly. She held the small pendant around her neck, engraved with the name, Stephen. Her heart felt like it was about to burst from her chest. "I leave all of my estate, including 65% of the shares in Rogers Property Holdings, 3 major properties in New York, Miami, and Boston, and my bank accounts, to my biological children, William, Isabella, and Lucas Rogers." The silence was chilling. Moments later, Lucas stifled a laugh, followed by William. Isabella stayed seated, lips pressed together, eyes shining with satisfaction. "What about Amelia?" she blurted out, her voice trembling like ice in her throat. David Oliver looked at her and leaned back in his chair with a faint smile. "According to the will, Ms. Amelia Rogers, legally adopted by Stephen Rogers, is to receive no part of the inheritance." "No way." Amelia stood up abruptly. "I cared for him until his last breath. He said he would leave me something." William raised an eyebrow. "Verbal promises? Too bad. Pillow talk doesn't count in court." Isabella whispered with biting sarcasm. "Dad always had a soft heart." But in the end, he knew blood came first. Amelia turned to David. "Mr. Oliver, you know I lived with him for 18 years. I was the only one there when he passed. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" David shrugged, flipping to the last page of the file. "Mr. Stephen did write one final note: Amelia is the daughter I love most, but love does not equal inheritance." "Lies!" Amelia cried, her voice cracking. "I don't believe it. He would never write that." Attorney Oliver's face turned stern as he closed the folder. "Miss, I'm merely reading what's been certified. If you doubt it, you're welcome to contest it in court, though I'm afraid there's little hope." Lucas patted Amelia on the shoulder as he got up to leave. "Later, sis. Don't forget to pack up. The house is getting some upgrades." Isabella gave a soft laugh, pulling a small perfume bottle from her purse and spraying her wrist. "Oh, and watch out for the media. They don't like adopted daughter pity stories." Amelia stood motionless in the cold room, the pale yellow light casting a ghostly glow on her face. Outside, rain had begun falling over New York. She gripped the leather notebook tightly and walked out of the office without saying another word. The New York rain fell for 3 straight hours. Droplets tapped from the edge of her umbrella onto the cold stone sidewalk, creating a weary, monotonous rhythm like the dying hope in Amelia's heart. She stood silently under the awning of the law office, her hand still gripping the worn leather notebook, the only thing left tying her to her late father. Everything else had collapsed. "Miss Amelia Rogers," came the voice of a court clerk behind her, snapping her out of her thoughts. "I've been instructed to escort you out of the building. The meeting is over." Amelia gave a slight nod. She said nothing. Her legs moved as if numb. As she reached the bottom of the steps, a familiar female voice called out behind her. "You really thought he'd leave you anything? That's adorable." Amelia turned around. Isabella stood there, phone in one hand, twirling a diamond ring on the other. "You're a joke, Amelia. An adopted stray with no blood ties, no value. Dad was overly kind to raise you for 18 years. Is that what you really think?" Amelia looked her straight in the eyes. "Dad loved me like his own. He said so every day." Isabella scoffed, stepping down the stairs like a queen descending her throne. "Sure, he said it. But words mean nothing in this world, Amelia. Paperwork is the only truth." Lucas Rogers sat on a stone bench outside the building, smoking. He cast a mocking glance at her. "Why don't you write a book, Amelia? Great title, Failed Foster, From Mansion to Sidewalk." "Shut up," Amelia muttered, walking past him quickly. But Lucas just laughed louder. "Relax, sis. How many days left in the mansion? 2. 3. Better start packing those memories." 3 days later, a black car pulled up in front of the gate. A middle-aged man stepped out, holding a stack of papers. It was Joseph Reed, a legal representative authorized to handle the property transfer. "Miss Rogers," he said in a robotic tone, "I'm here on behalf of Attorney Oliver's office. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises and are not permitted to take any valuable assets." "I understand," Amelia replied, her voice hoarse from sleepless nights. "I'm only taking my clothes." Joseph handed over the papers. "Please sign here to acknowledge." As Amelia finished signing, the large gate behind her swung open. Her 3 adoptive siblings walked out as if strolling through a park. William wore a cream cashmere coat, holding a glass of red wine. "Such a touching scene," he said, smirking. "We should have hired a photographer to capture this historic moment." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "I think we should throw a celebration tonight. The mansion needs a cleansing after 18 years of bad energy." Lucas burst out laughing. "She's right. DJ, wine, hot tub, let's go. Farewell, Amelia." Amelia tightened her grip on the suitcase handle. The humiliation made her want to disappear from the world. But she shed no tears. She walked slowly through the gate. The rain had begun again. She paused for a moment, turning to look at the house she once called home, where warm dinners, fatherly hugs, and bedtime wishes once lived. Now, it was all wiped away, as if she had never existed. No one, not even the old housekeepers, dared approach Amelia. Some avoided eye contact. Some apologized awkwardly. Only one, Carmen Delgado, the former housekeeper, had the courage to call. "Amelia, poor child. I'm so sorry. I can't let you stay at my place. My family's scared of the trouble." "I understand, Miss Carmen. It's okay." She hung up, slumped onto a bench near the old St. Andrew's Church. Her phone buzzed a message from the bank. Account balance, $74.23. She let out a soft, bitter laugh. She had been erased legally, socially, and emotionally. She had no one left. That afternoon, Amelia wheeled her suitcase to the small apartment of an old friend, Lauren Miller, who had once studied medicine with her at Columbia University. But just as she knocked, Lauren's face appeared and immediately froze. "Amelia. I can't help you." "What are you saying?" "Lauren, I just need a place to stay for a few days. I'll find a job soon." "It's not that I don't want to," Lauren replied, looking down at the floor, "but my parents read the news. They told me to stay away from you if I don't want to get caught up in scandal." Amelia froze. Lauren kept her eyes on the ground and whispered, "I'm sorry." The door closed slowly. Amelia stood there, unmoving. The rain grew heavier, hitting her face directly. No one called. No one checked on her. Everything was falling apart, piece by piece. That night, she stayed at a cheap motel in the Bronx neighborhood, known for being rough and noisy. The room was small, damp, and reeked of mold. She lay on her side on the worn-out mattress, staring at the stained ceiling. She took out the old leather notebook and opened the first page. Stephen's handwriting, in blue ink, was still there. "My Amelia. Life is not fair, but you must always be kind. Never lose yourself to hatred. Your father." Amelia clutched the notebook to her chest. Her shoulders began to tremble. But this time, the tears finally fell. "I'm sorry, Dad. I believe people would see the love you had for me, but all they saw was money." In the darkness, the sounds of car horns and street arguments echoed endlessly from below. But inside Amelia's mind, there was only a cold, infinite void. Morning broke over New York on the fourth day after Stephen's funeral. The sky remained gray, but the rain had stopped. A dry, biting cold seeped through every layer of clothing. Amelia sat curled up in a small cafe on Bleecker Street. In front of her sat a cold cup of coffee and half-eaten bread. She was nearly drained of all energy. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Joseph Reed. "At 2 p.m. today, legal staff will arrive to complete the property transfer. You are required to vacate the premises immediately." Amelia looked at the time, 12:47 p.m. She tightened the strap of her bag and stood up in silence. The taxi she called arrived shortly after. The driver, a middle-aged man with a wrinkled face and a faded baseball cap, asked in a thick Brooklyn accent, "Heading to 24, Park Avenue?" "Yes," Amelia nodded softly. "That's the address." As the car approached the estate, the driver glanced in the rearview mirror, hesitating. "You live there? That place belongs to the Rogers family, right? Big real estate group. I read there was some big drama going on." Amelia didn't answer. She just nodded. The driver clicked his tongue but said no more. The car stopped at the gate. Amelia paid, then pulled her old suitcase and bag behind her as she quietly walked in. The tall iron gate had already been relocked. She had to ring the bell. A few moments later, the gate opened, and a new housekeeper named Rose appeared. Her face was expressionless, her eyes unfamiliar. "You're Amelia?" she asked in a sharp tone. "I'm Mr. Stephen Rogers' adopted daughter," Amelia replied, emphasizing every word. Rose didn't respond. She simply turned and led the way. The scene inside left Amelia speechless. The large portrait of Stephen that once hung in the main hall had been taken down. The family photos were gone. Laughter echoed from the living room. When she walked in, Stephen's 3 biological children were lounging on the sofa, sipping red wine and nibbling on cheddar cheese. William was the first to notice her. "Well, look who's back to pack her bags," he raised an eyebrow. "We thought you were gone for good." "I'm here to collect my personal belongings," Amelia said firmly. Lucas, still chewing, added. "Rose will supervise you. We don't want you to, accidentally, take anything our father left behind." Isabella said nothing. She simply admired her dark red nails and took a sip of wine, as if Amelia's presence was something dirty that needed to be cleansed. "Nothing to say, Isabella?" Amelia asked, her eyes fixed on her sister. "No shame? No guilt?" Isabella put down her glass and walked toward her. "Guilt for what, Amelia?" "For inheriting my biological father's estate. You've always been delusional. You thought he truly saw you as his own. You were an abandoned baby left at a train station. We all remember it." "He loved me," Amelia replied, her eyes glistening. "He once said, 'Amelia is the only child who makes me proud.' I haven't forgotten that." William laughed loudly. Dad had a soft spot, especially for things that made him feel noble. But when it came time to decide, he was still a Rogers. Lucas jumped up. "Enough with the drama. Go pack. Rose will check every bag. We're not losing anything else." Amelia went up to the second floor. The room where she had lived for 18 years now felt eerily empty. The sheets had been stripped. Her keepsakes' photos, sketchbooks, letters from high school were all dumped into a pile on a chair. "You have 1 hour," Rose said from the doorway. "Then I'll check everything thoroughly. You're not allowed to take anything that belonged to the previous owner." "I am his daughter," Amelia said, turning toward her. "I follow the orders of the people currently living here," Rose replied, without emotion. Amelia bowed her head. She began packing carefully, placing each book, a few old clothes, and some worthless jewelry into her bag. When she reached a small wooden box containing Stephen's handwritten letters, Rose stepped closer and held out her hand. "Open it. These are personal letters. Not assets. Open it." Amelia bit back her anger and opened the box. Rose glanced through it, saw nothing valuable, and nodded. Amelia closed it, struggling to remain calm. As she left the mansion, her suitcase wheels squeaked against the gravel. She passed through the garden Stephen had tended every Sunday morning. The camellias were still in full bloom, as if unaware that their gardener now lay buried beneath cold earth. The gate shut behind her. The clang of steel echoed in her mind like the sound of a coffin lid slamming shut. She stood outside the gate for a long time. Her eyes no longer cried. There was no farewell, no look of regret. It was as if she had never existed there. That evening, Amelia went to a small bar in Brooklyn called the Whisper Bar, where an old friend, Daniel Ruiz, worked as manager. Daniel was one of the few who had stayed in touch, even as the media tore Amelia's name through the mud. "Amelia." Daniel ran out and hugged her. "I read the news and was shocked. But you know what? It's so obvious what those people are up to. I need a place to crash for a few days," Amelia said bluntly. "I'll find somewhere else soon. Don't talk nonsense. I've got a spare room upstairs. Not a 5-star hotel, but it's clean. Thank you. I won't forget this." Daniel squeezed her hand. I don't care if you inherited anything or not. I just know you never used anyone. That's all that matters. That night, for the first time in days, Amelia slept in a room with a locked door and a roof overhead. But inside her, the storm had not passed. She knew what she had just gone through was only the prelude to a much longer tragedy. And she knew, if she didn't save herself, no one else would. The next morning, as Amelia came down from the small room above the Whisper Bar, Daniel greeted her with a worried look. On the bar counter, the morning newspaper lay open. The headline hit her like a slap. Fake heiress or gold digger? Secrets behind the Rogers family drama. Amelia picked up the paper. The article was filled with vicious accusations claiming she manipulated Stephen's illness to gain his affection, accusing her of plotting to seize the estate by ingratiating herself with an aging father. Worse, they included private photos, her sitting by his hospital bed, hugging him at a family event, all captioned with heavily suggestive language. I'm sorry, Amelia, Daniel said softly. I don't know where they got the photos. Someone in that house must have sold them. I get it, she whispered, her hands gripping the paper so tightly it tore. Her phone rang. Amelia glanced down. It was Beatrice Stone, her best friend from college, now a resident doctor at the same hospital where Amelia used to work. Beatrice, you read it already, didn't you? Amelia spoke first. Amelia, are you okay? Okay, is a luxury I can't afford right now. But I'm still breathing. There was a pause on the other end, then Beatrice said slowly. Amelia, I need to be honest. The hospital's HR called me this morning. They said you're under investigation over the inheritance allegations. And, they've decided to suspend you for now. What? Amelia could hardly believe her ears. I took my leave properly. I didn't do anything wrong. I know. But those articles, and the pressure from your family, they don't want the Rogers name dragged through the mud. I'm not a Rogers the way they think. I've never been greedy or calculating. I believe you. But sometimes, the faith of friends isn't enough to overcome a cowardly system. Amelia hung up, her hand trembling. Daniel approached and placed a hot cup of tea in front of her. They know how to strike where it hurts. First the will, then your job, now your dignity. I never thought it would come to this. I've lived with integrity for years. And still. Daniel was silent for a moment, then asked. Do you have a plan? I don't know, Amelia sighed, her eyes distant. Maybe, find a lawyer. The next day, Amelia went to the law office of Albert Martin, a name Daniel had recommended. It was a modest apartment on the third floor, no flashy signage, just an old wooden plaque that read, Martin and Associates. Hello, I'm Amelia Rogers. I have an appointment with Mr. Martin, she told the receptionist. Yes, please go to room 304. The door opened to reveal a man in his early 40s with graying hair seated behind a desk. He looked up when he saw her. Ms. Rogers. Please, have a seat. I've read a brief overview of your case. I was written out of the will. But I believe there's another version. My father told me he would leave something for me. Albert tilted his head. Do you have any proof of that? No documents, just his words, and a few letters he wrote to me. I'm sorry, but in the eyes of the law, spoken promises don't secure inheritance. And unless the letters contain legal phrasing, they're hard to use. So, you can't help me? I didn't say that. But I must be honest. Your chances are extremely slim. The Rogers family holds a lot of influence, and David Oliver is a seasoned lawyer very difficult to beat. I don't need to win right away. I just want the truth to come out. Albert looked at her for a long moment, then slowly said. I'll try reaching out to some sources. But you need to prepare yourself for the worst. That afternoon, Amelia received a phone call from Charles Ingram, a journalist at a major financial magazine. He had previously written a glowing feature on Stephen last year. "I heard you're being turned on by both your family and the public," Charles said bluntly. "I want to hear your side. Will you write the truth?" Amelia asked cautiously. "I'm a journalist. Writing the truth is my job. But I'll need evidence, or at least a compelling story. I don't have hard proof. Just a feeling, and the things my father used to say to me." "Is that enough?" Charles was silent for a few seconds, then replied. "Not yet. But it could be a start. I'll work on it independently. If I find anything, I'll call you." "Thank you." "No matter what, thank you." A few days later, the media continued to swarm. A tabloid ran the headline, "Amelia Rogers, Gold Digger or Helpless Victim?" The article tried to sound neutral, but the comments section was a nightmare. She was clearly scheming from the start. No one stays at the hospital for 3 days straight unless they're trying to win someone over. If it were me, I wouldn't have left her a penny. Raising her was the biggest mistake Stephen Rogers ever made. Amelia read every line, her throat tightening. Daniel had to snatch the phone out of her hands. "Stop reading. You'll lose your mind. They don't know anything, and yet they judge like they lived in that house. This world isn't fair. But don't let it destroy you." That night, Amelia sat alone on the rooftop of the bar. The city of New York glittered below her, still bright, still bustling, full of people who knew nothing of her pain. Her phone rang. "Hello," she answered wearily. "Amelia," a male voice said. "This is Thomas Grant, a doctor at the clinic where Mr. Stephen used to get his regular checkups." "Yes. What is it?" "I wasn't sure if I should call, but he talked about you a lot. He always called you his only daughter. And a few months ago, he asked me to witness a will. But I never heard about it again." Amelia's heart clenched. Do you remember what the will said?" "Not exactly. I just remember him saying, 'Everything goes to Amelia.' Then he said David Oliver would handle the rest. Would you be willing to testify to that?" "If necessary." "I will." Amelia clutched the phone, tears streaming down her face. In that cold darkness, a light flickered. Just a small one, but enough for her to hold on to. 2 weeks after leaving the mansion, Amelia's life was nothing but a string of drifting days. Though Daniel let her stay in the small room above the Whisper Bar, she knew it was only a temporary solution. Daniel still had to juggle rent, employee salaries, and growing utility debts. "You can't live up there forever, Amelia," Daniel said one night while washing glasses, sighing. "I hate to say it, but you need a job." "I know," Amelia replied, the shadows beneath her eyes deeper from sleepless nights. "But no one wants to hire someone being torn apart by the media and suspended for alleged inheritance greed." Daniel set the glass down harder than necessary. "I know a small bar in Harlem called the Shadow Lounge. The owner, Teresa Ingram, is tough but fair. If you're willing to work night shifts, maybe she'll take you." Amelia nodded. In her situation, she had no right to be picky. The next evening, she arrived at the Shadow Lounge at exactly 6 p.m., her thin coat no match for New York's bitter wind. The bar was dimly lit. The wooden floors creaked with every step. The tables were chipped, and the air reeked of cigarettes. Teresa was a woman in her 50s, petite but with a voice sharp as a blade. "Daniel says you used to be a nurse." "Doesn't matter. I need someone to mop floors, clean glasses, wipe up puke, and deal with the stench of booze." "I can do that," Amelia replied quickly. "Pays $45 a shift. 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. No complaints. No being late. Got a problem with that?" "No. I accept." Working the night shift at the Shadow Lounge was unlike anything Amelia had ever imagined. Every night was a nightmare: drunks, shouting, even fights. Most customers were blue-collar workers, cab drivers, or people living on the fringes of society. One night, a middle-aged man named Nathan grabbed her arm, slurring. "You're the girl from the papers, right? The fake heiress? Let me give you a little real affection." Amelia pulled away calmly, but Teresa simply stood with her arms crossed, watching without intervening. As they locked up, she said coldly, "That's how it is here. If you're weak, don't expect to last." By the second week, Amelia's body began to rebel. Her eyes were bruised from exhaustion, her fingers swollen from cleaning chemicals, her knees stiff from hours of standing. She kept going. Never complained. But every time she returned to the small room above the Whisper Bar, she collapsed without moving. One night, after a group of customers shouted, "Thief," and threw a drink at her, Amelia quietly slipped into the restroom. She looked in the mirror, pale face, sweat-drenched hair, eyes void of life. Then everything went blurry. When she came to, she was lying on the bathroom floor, soaked. Someone was shaking her. "Amelia. God, can you hear me?" Daniel's voice trembled as he gently tapped her cheeks. I'm just tired, just exhausted," she mumbled. "You passed out. When they called me, you were unconscious on the floor. That bar didn't even call an ambulance, they just wanted you gone." Amelia tried to sit up but got dizzy and fell back. Daniel held her close, tears welling in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have never let you go to that dump. No. I needed the money. I didn't want to be your burden. Listen to me, Amelia. You can earn money again. But if you die from exhaustion, it's all over. They already stole everything from you, don't let them take your life too." Teresa never called again. No apology. No check-in. A young woman collapsing from exhaustion was nothing more than a footnote in New York's relentless tide. Amelia lay on the bed, clutching her father's old notebook. She didn't dare open social media. Every time she turned on her phone, there was a new article, a new cruel comment. She felt small, invisible, and unnecessary. As if her very existence were a mistake that needed erasing. One weekend afternoon, she tried to visit attorney Albert Martin's office. But the receptionist said, "He's out of town on business. He'll be back in 3 days. I just wanted to know if he found anything. I'm not authorized to share that. Thank you for understanding." She walked out of the office and wandered the sidewalks of Broadway. The neon signs and bright advertisements felt like a cruel joke against the grayness of her life. Passing by a boutique she used to visit with Stephen, she stopped. In the display was a white dress she once wanted to wear to graduation. Stephen had said, "You'll be the brightest in the room wearing that." She lowered her head. The lump in her throat made it hard to breathe. With no money left for rent, Amelia finally left the Whisper Bar, despite Daniel's pleas for her to stay. But she couldn't. She felt like a shadow, disrupting everyone's life. She slept in Central Park, curled beneath a stone overhang where free violin performances used to be held. Each morning, she washed her face at a public fountain, drank tap water, and, if lucky, received a meal from the nearby church. The only person who still called occasionally was journalist Charles Ingram. "I'm still investigating," he said. "Some documents aren't matching. There are signs David Oliver may have destroyed older paperwork, but it'll take time to confirm. Thank you for not giving up. Just don't give up before I do." One cold morning at the end of the month, while Amelia sat outside the public library trying to stay out of the wind, a young woman approached her, phone in hand. "Are you Amelia Rogers?" the woman asked. Her face was unfamiliar, but there was sincerity in her eyes. "Who I am doesn't seem to matter anymore. I'm Sophia Lewis, David Oliver's former assistant. I quit. Anne. I know something about the will." Amelia looked up. What did you say? Sophia leaned in, voice low. There was another will. The original. I saw Mr. Oliver print it. But then it disappeared. Do you know who might still have it? I'm not sure, but I think someone does. Maybe Mr. Stevens' personal secretary Michael Gordon. Michael? He vanished after the funeral. I heard he's living in Tarrytown. Keeps to himself. If you find him, things might change. Amelia shot to her feet, a strange feeling rising in her chest. Hope. The bus to Tarrytown took nearly 2 hours, winding through the dry hills north of New York. Amelia sat by the window, clutching her worn backpack. Inside were all she had left, a few clothes, Stephen's old leather notebook, and Albert Martin's faded business card. Sophia's words echoed in her mind, if you find Michael Gordon, everything might change. When the bus stopped at a small square near St. Michael's Church, Amelia stepped off. A pale golden light bathed the town in a storybook glow. She asked several locals, but they all shook their heads until an old woman pointed toward a dirt road at the edge of town. There's an old man living out by the woods. They call him Mr. Gordon. No one knows much. He doesn't talk to anyone. Amelia thanked her and followed the path. The stone house stood near the forest edge, its shingles crooked, the garden wildly overgrown. She knocked softly. After a moment, the door creaked open. A thin, white-haired man with a face lined by time stood behind it. Who are you? I'm Amelia Rogers. Stephen's adopted daughter. Michael Gordon went silent. His eyes briefly flickered with recognition, then turned cautious. What do you want? I need to know, about the real will. Sophia Lewis said you might have seen the original. Is it true? Michael paused, then opened the door wider. Come in. The house was simple, filled with dusty books and old files. Michael poured her a cup of tea and sighed. Stephen, he gave me a copy of the will. But then asked me to keep it hidden. He feared David Oliver would interfere. In that will, did Stephen leave everything to me? Amelia barely dared to breathe. Michael slowly nodded. All of it: company shares, properties, control of Rogers' property holdings. He said, if my blood betrays me, I'll trust only Amelia. Amelia trembled. Do you still have that copy? Yes. I hid it well. But I haven't dared show it. David has powerful connections. I feared retaliation. I can't ask you to take risks. But I beg you, please testify. Michael studied her quietly. Do you have a lawyer? Yes. Albert Martin. He's not famous, but he believes in me. After a moment, Michael nodded. All right. I'll testify. But we'll need to prepare. David won't go down easily. 3 days later, Amelia returned to New York filled with hope. Martin had filed a motion to reopen the estate case, citing new witness testimony and the possible existence of a concealed will. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week at Manhattan Civil Court. Daniel squeezed her hand before she entered. You're not alone. I'm here. If they try to humiliate you again, I'll throw this mic in their smug faces. Amelia managed a faint smile. Inside the courtroom, William, Isabella, and Lucas sat at the opposing table, dressed in formal black like they were attending another funeral. David Oliver looked unbothered, holding a thick folder, his face unreadable. Judge Clara Vaughn, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, struck her gavel. The preliminary hearing is in session. Plaintiff Amelia Rogers may proceed. Attorney Martin stood. Your Honor, we request the estate case be reopened based on testimony confirming the existence of a superseding will. This witness is present and willing to testify. Bring in the witness, the judge said. Michael Gordon entered. The Rogers siblings turned simultaneously, faces visibly stiffening. David remained still. Michael spoke clearly, his voice trembling but firm. Mr. Stephen once gave me a copy of his will, designating all assets to Amelia Rogers. He feared his biological children would act dishonorably. I kept the document hidden due to fear of retaliation. David Oliver chuckled. Your Honor, it's absurd that a reclusive retiree is the sole keeper of the most critical document in this case. Judge Vaughn frowned. Mr. Oliver, please maintain decorum. My apologies, Your Honor, David nodded. But I must point out the implausibility. If this will were real, why wasn't it submitted when Mr. Stephen passed? Martin countered. We have valid reasons. The witness feared for his safety. Furthermore, we have credible indications that Mr. David Oliver tampered with the will records. David raised an eyebrow. May I ask, does Ms. Rogers have any physical evidence? Or is this all hearsay? Amelia stood. I do. A handwritten letter from my father, bearing his signature and personal seal. In it, he wrote, if anything happens to me, I hope you uphold my final wish. She held up a sealed envelope. The judge accepted it and ordered a 30-minute recess to examine its contents. In the hallway, Amelia sat on a wooden bench, hands ice cold. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. You did well. No matter what happens, you've shown them you're not weak. Isabella marched over, her face twisted in fury. I can't believe you're siding with her. Michael responded firmly. I'm siding with the truth. William whispered to David, while Lucas paced restlessly. When the hearing resumed, Judge Vaughn declared. We require additional time to verify the document's authenticity. However, if the claims hold, the suppression of a will would constitute a criminal offense. David rose, his composure cracking. We'll cooperate. Judge Vaughn struck her gavel. The preliminary hearing is concluded. The full trial will be held next month. All parties are to preserve the estate's current status. Any attempt to transfer or hide assets will be prosecuted. Amelia exhaled. She hadn't won, but she wasn't buried anymore. For once, her voice had been heard in a courtroom where before, only contempt echoed. As they left the courthouse, David leaned in and said quietly. You don't know who you're up against, Amelia. This isn't a fairy tale. This is America, and justice comes with a price. She stared straight into his eyes. Then I'll be the first to pay for truth with pain, if I must. The courtroom doors slammed shut behind her. Amelia walked down the corridor, her legs unsteady. Though the hearing had allowed a glimpse of truth, the hope it sparked faded almost as quickly. Michael left early to avoid attention. Daniel had to get back to the bar. Amelia walked alone along Madison Avenue, the early winter wind cutting through her thin coat. But it wasn't the cold, it was the loneliness that made her shiver. For the next 3 days, Amelia ran all over the city seeking legal support. Attorney Martin promised to continue, but warned her. I'll need outside help, Amelia. Maybe a legal aid foundation, or a civil justice fund. I can't take on Oliver and the Rogers family forever alone. Amelia nodded. She understood. But when she reached out to organizations, the answers were all the same. We're sorry. Your case doesn't meet our criteria for free legal aid. We need more concrete legal evidence. Due to media pressure, we can't get involved. Each time she hung up, she wanted to smash her head against a wall. She knew the truth, but without legal documents, no one would believe her. Charles Ingram, the only journalist who still kept in touch, called her on Saturday afternoon. I managed to obtain a copy of the notarized archive file of the original will, the one that left the entire estate to the 3 biological children. And Amelia held her breath. There's something unusual. The notarization code was changed at the last minute. According to the Archive Authority's records, the original was created on June 5. But the current code belongs to a document that was replaced on June 11, that is, after Mr. Stephen was transferred to another hospital. Amelia froze. So that means David altered the document? Most likely. But unless we can find the real will or at least a signed copy from Stephen himself, everything remains just a theory. I have a letter my father wrote, Amelia said softly. But they claim it's just a personal note. Charles paused, then said in a cautioning tone. They don't need to prove you're wrong. They just need to prove you can't be right. Amelia collapsed onto the table in the makeshift room behind Daniel's bar. The wind kept slamming against the windowpanes with creaking sounds. She placed the old leather notebook on the table, opened to the first page, then the next. Her father Stephen's handwriting appeared clearly. If anything happens, find Michael. I don't trust David. He's too good at fabricating the truth. Amelia clutched the page. To anyone else, those words were vague fears. But to her, they were a will. She called Michael. I need the copy you kept. It's in the safe at my house. But honestly, I doubt it still holds legal power. I don't need it to be valid. I need proof that David buried it. The next morning, Amelia returned to Tarrytown. She brought with her a USB drive containing a scanned copy of the original will that Michael had secretly kept since Stephen was alive. The signature, personal seal, and handwritten note on the paper's margin read, "This estate belongs to Amelia Rogers, my only daughter." When she presented the copy to Attorney Martin, he frowned. If the court confirms this as a concealed document, Oliver could face criminal charges. Do we have hope then? Yes, he said cautiously. But you need to be ready for the court to dismiss this copy as insufficient. Amelia bit her lip. I've already prepared for the worst. That evening, she returned to New York under a steady drizzle. As she walked through Times Square, she saw her own face on an LED billboard, a primetime news segment airing a report titled, Amelia Rogers, the Disinherited Daughter or a Grasping Opportunist. The video showed her exiting the courthouse, her tense face enlarged, overlaid with a sensationalist voiceover. A modern-day Cinderella who failed? Or a dark mirror of greed? People on the street murmured. A group of young men nearby pointed at her. Isn't that the bitter adopted kid? I heard she sued her own family just to steal the inheritance. If I were rich, I wouldn't leave a cent to someone like that. Amelia walked faster, head down, heart pounding like it might burst from her chest. She ran into Central Park, collapsed onto a bench, rain hitting her face. Dirt clung to her shoes, and the water soaked through her thin clothes. She looked up at the sky. There was no one. Nowhere left to go. Dad, you left me with these people. Her voice cracked in the rain. A homeless man named Ernest Brown, who had once shared a donated lunch box with her a few days before, quietly approached and handed her a damp blanket. It's cold tonight. You'll freeze to death out here. Amelia took it and nodded gently. Thank you. Doesn't matter who you are. I see something in you that reminds me of myself. You've been pushed out too. I used to have everything, now I have nothing. Ernest Brown sat beside her, his gaze distant. No one's born abandoned. They just get forgotten along the way. The next day, Amelia went to the headquarters of a large law firm called Martin and Associados, where she had once interned during college. She hoped someone from her past might help. But as she stepped through the front entrance, the receptionist stopped her. You need an appointment. I want to see Attorney Camila Harris. I interned here. I have a matter regarding the Rogers estate case. I'm sorry, I can't let you in. We are not involved in that case. But I'm the victim. David Oliver hid evidence, the media smeared me, and society is drowning me. The receptionist's tone sharpened. We're the legal representatives of Rogers Real Estate. If you don't leave, I'll have to call security. Amelia stood speechless. That night, she returned to the makeshift cot behind Daniel's bar. On the table was a plate of cold rice and a glass of water. Daniel looked at her, about to say something, then hesitated. Finally, he sat beside her and handed her a small envelope. "There's $100 in here. It's from the tips I got these past few weeks. I saved it in case you needed it." "I can't accept that." "Shut up. This is my way of showing that someone still believes in you." Amelia hugged Daniel, tears falling in silence. She had lost the estate, her reputation, her dreams, her career. But not all faith in humanity. And in that deep darkness, where belief was no longer measured by victory but by the will to keep going, Amelia knew she still had one chance. New York woke to a morning mist stretching over the streets, early winter sunlight casting pale gold beams between the city's old stone buildings. Amelia sat in Attorney Albert Martin's office, both hands clutching a steaming cup of coffee. Her face was pale, but her eyes no longer wandered. For the first time in weeks, she felt clear, she was moving closer to justice. "I got in touch with someone who might change everything," Martin said calmly. "Lucy Foster. She's agreed to support the case if the original will can be verified." Amelia's head snapped up. Lucy Foster? The attorney who won all those big inheritance cases? That's the one. She's also known for defending the underdog. I gave her a brief of your case, and she immediately said, "Schedule a meeting today." Amelia clenched her hands, tears brimming. "I thought no one believed in me anymore." "Well, now you have at least 2 lawyers. Lucy Foster's office was on the 7th floor of a high-rise along 5th Avenue. When Amelia and Martin entered, Lucy was standing by the window, the glass dome above casting light across her sharp-featured face. She wore a navy blue suit, her hair in a high bun, her expression both fierce and warm. "Amelia Rogers," Lucy said, walking over to shake her hand. "So I finally meet the woman the press calls greedy, but who's been living under a bridge." Amelia gave a faint smile, perhaps her first in weeks. "I don't need anyone to believe I'm good. I just need to prove I'm not a fraud." Lucy nodded. "That's enough for me to work for free." Martin placed the USB on the desk and outlined the original will, Michael Gordon's testimony, and Stephen's handwritten letter. Lucy read through each page carefully. Her eyes lit up when she reached the handwritten line. "Amelia is the only one who has never disappointed me. David Oliver's going to lose it when he sees this," she chuckled softly. "We have enough to reopen the case. And this time, I'll make sure he faces the truth." Amelia whispered. "And, my siblings? Will they?" Lucy squeezed her hand. "If they helped destroy documents or aided David, they won't escape legal consequences." The official trial opened the following week. News spread quickly. The media shifted from blame to curiosity. On CNN's evening broadcast, Charles Ingram appeared and said, "The Rogers inheritance case has taken a sharp turn, a hidden will, a surprise witness, and the involvement of famed attorney Lucy Foster. The public awaits what could be a landmark trial." William Rogers hurled his coffee mug at the wall when he saw the report. "Damn it! Why her? That Lucy Foster has put half the city's businessmen in jail for fraud. Oliver, what the hell are you doing?" David Oliver sat calmly behind his desk, though sweat beaded on his forehead. "I'll handle it. As long as we discredit Amelia before the trial, she won't stand a chance." "You've been saying that for a month." Isabella growled. "I won't let the Rogers fortune end up with some girl picked up from the train station." Lucas, who rarely spoke in meetings, finally said, "What if we lose? Will we be investigated for fraud?" Oliver narrowed his eyes and spoke slowly. "If that happens, I'll be the first to fall. And I don't intend to fall." On the morning of the trial, hundreds gathered outside the New York Civil Courthouse. Reporters, curious citizens, even law students crowded the steps. A sea of phones rose into the air as Amelia stepped out of an old taxi, flanked by Lucy Foster and Albert Martin. A middle-aged woman in the crowd shouted. Amelia, stay strong. They can't bury you forever. Amelia froze. It was the first time she had ever heard a word of encouragement amid the sea of people who had once cursed her. Lucy tilted her head. That's the sound of justice beginning to speak. Inside the courtroom, William, Isabella, and Lucas sat huddled on the defendant's bench. Oliver sat in the middle, flipping through files but constantly glancing at Lucy. Judge Clara Vaughn entered. Her voice rang out clearly. We are convening to resume the hearing regarding the estate division of Mr. Stephen Rogers. Plaintiff, Ms. Amelia Rogers, represented by attorney Lucy Foster. Defendants, the biological children of Mr. Stephen Rogers, represented by Mr. David Oliver. Lucy stepped forward, her gaze sharp as steel. Your Honor, today I present a truth that has long been buried. The original will of Mr. Stephen Rogers was either destroyed or deliberately concealed, while the previously submitted document is an unlawful replacement. She submitted the scanned copy of the original will, the handwritten letter, and the sworn statement of Michael Gordon. The judge asked. Does the defense have a rebuttal? Oliver stood up. This copy holds no legal value. It is not notarized and may have been forged. Lucy narrowed her eyes. If so, then I request the court verify the ink and fingerprints. We've already had an independent forensic analysis conducted. Here is the sealed report. She handed over a thick sealed envelope. Oliver began to visibly sweat. As the forensic report was read aloud, the courtroom fell silent. The conclusion: the ink matched the exclusive pen used by Mr. Stephen, the paper had a unique embossed seal from his office, and the fingerprints confirmed that it was indeed his handwriting. Lucy turned to David Oliver. Mr. Oliver, as the attorney responsible for drafting the will, you had the duty to safeguard the original document. Where is it? Oliver remained silent. Lucy turned back to the judge. We request a search of Mr. David Oliver's personal safes and legal archives. Judge Vaughn nodded. Request granted. And let it be known, if evidence proves Mr. Oliver intentionally destroyed legal documents, he will face criminal prosecution. David Oliver gripped his files tightly, his face pale. After the lunch recess, the bailiff brought in a large sealed envelope, evidence retrieved from Oliver's personal safe, the original will, bearing Stephen's fingerprints and the official seal. The courtroom gasped. David collapsed into his chair. Lucy stood tall, her voice as sharp as a blade. Your Honor, there is no longer any doubt. The legally binding will was concealed during the estate division process. Ms. Amelia Rogers is the sole rightful heir. Judge Vaughn nodded and struck her gavel. The hearing will continue to determine criminal responsibility. But for now, I hereby declare, the original will has been recovered. Amelia Rogers is entitled to inherit the full estate per Mr. Stephen Rogers' wishes. Amelia sat frozen. Tears streamed down her face. From the back row, Daniel shouted. You did it. Charles Ingram turned on his recorder. Truth has prevailed. 1 month after the historic trial, the New York County Civil Court convened the final session to issue the official verdict. The courtroom was packed not only with journalists but also representatives from international legal organizations, law students, and citizens who had followed the case. The name, Amelia Rogers, had become a symbol of resilience in the face of blatant injustice. Amelia sat between her two attorneys, Lucy Foster to her left, Albert Martin to her right. The light from the windows bathed the courtroom in a rare, radiant glow. Judge Clara Vaughn entered with a solemn expression, but her eyes revealed a deep respect for the young woman in front of her. Let us begin. Every word echoed through the still air. After thorough investigation, examination of evidence, and testimony from all relevant parties, the court concludes, the will submitted by attorney David Oliver was fraudulent. The original will, drafted by Mr. Stephen Rogers on June 5, is hereby recognized as the only legal and valid document. The courtroom held its breath. Accordingly, the entire estate including 65% of Rogers Property Holdings shares, 3 properties located in New York, Miami, and Boston, along with other financial investments shall be granted to Ms. Amelia Rogers, the legal adoptive daughter of Mr. Stephen Rogers. Daniel burst into tears from the back row, clapping before he could stop himself. The crowd quickly followed suit. Judge Vaughn tapped her gavel gently to restore order, then continued. As for Mr. David Oliver, the court finds him guilty of destroying evidence, falsifying inheritance documents, and obstructing justice. He is hereby sentenced to 4 years in prison. Additionally, he is ordered to pay the plaintiff's legal fees. Oliver sat motionless, his face ghostly pale. A court officer stepped forward and cuffed him. As he passed by Amelia, he couldn't bring himself to look up. Lucas, William, and Isabella were also called to stand. They looked deflated, a far cry from their former arrogance. As for the defendants Lucas, William, and Isabella Rogers, the court finds they aided and abetted in criminal conduct by conspiring to conceal documents, fabricating testimony, and defaming the rightful heir. The court rules as follows. Lucas Rogers is sentenced to 2 years of probation and fined $150,000. William Rogers is sentenced to 2 years in prison and is banned from company leadership for 5 years. Isabella Rogers is sentenced to 1 year of probation, must pay a $100,000 fine, and publicly apologize through the media. Isabella screamed. "I didn't do anything. I just. Judge Vaughn struck her gavel. This court does not rule based on tears. It rules based on truth. After exiting the courtroom, Amelia descended the steps of the New York Civil Courthouse to roaring applause from the crowd gathered outside. Media surged forward, microphones, cameras, flashing lights everywhere. Charles Ingram was the first to reach her. "Amelia. How do you feel now that the court has ruled you the rightful heir?" Amelia looked straight into the camera, her voice calm. "I don't feel like I won. I feel like justice was served. My father is gone, but today I was able to defend his honor and my own." Another reporter asked. "Do you plan to countersue for defamation?" She shook her head. "No. I don't need money from those who tried to destroy my life. I want to focus on repairing the damage they caused." 4 weeks later, the court officially transferred all assets per the ruling. Amelia became the rightful chairwoman of Rogers Property Holdings, the 4th largest real estate group in the U.S. She refused to hold a victory party and didn't attend any lavish events. Instead, she quietly visited the company's headquarters on Broadway, met with each employee, and bowed. "I'm sorry for the chaos over the past months. From now on, we rebuild with kindness." The press was stunned by Amelia's next decision. She sold the Miami mansion and used all the proceeds, nearly $5 million, to establish a nonprofit, the Stephen Rogers Scholarship Foundation, dedicated to helping orphan children in need. At the foundation's launch ceremony, attended by a representative from the New York Department of Education, the official stated, "Ms. Amelia's action is not only a tribute to her late father but also a beacon of hope for thousands of children like she once was." Amelia stepped onto the podium. No grandeur, no fancy words. She spoke softly, almost a whisper. "I once slept in a park. I was called a leech. I was laughed at in court. But I never believed I was worthless. I'm not doing this for praise, I'm doing it to tell every orphan child out there, you are not alone." Isabella Rogers, in a press conference mandated by the court, bowed and issued a public apology. "I was wrong to doubt the love my father had for Amelia. I let greed blind me to the truth, and I regret it." Though her apology felt mechanical, it marked the first time the Rogers family publicly acknowledged Amelia as the rightful heir. Lucas vanished from the media. William was expelled from the board and faced millions in debt from canceled business deals. As for David Oliver, reports said he was assaulted in prison after a fight with another inmate. A lawyer who once manipulated justice was now scrubbing dishes in the prison kitchen. One early spring day, Amelia returned to the train station where she had once been abandoned as a child. The platform was empty and cold but no longer frightening. She stood quietly before lamp post number 7, the place where police once found her in a wicker basket. Daniel stood beside her, saying nothing. "I used to think destiny was something you couldn't fight," Amelia said. "But maybe, the day I was abandoned here was actually the start of something bigger." Daniel smiled. "You weren't defeated by fate. You redefined it." They embraced. No words were needed. Just a perfect moment. The next afternoon, during a peaceful walk in Central Park, Amelia stopped under a willow tree. The breeze was light. The sky, cloudless and blue. She took an old, frayed letter from her pocket, a letter Stephen had written to her when she turned 18. "My daughter. Life is not always fair. But if you live with kindness, you will be the light in someone else's darkness." Amelia folded the letter and looked up. On her face was a soft, gentle smile, but one stronger than ever. She didn't need revenge. She had one with truth, dignity, and unshakable faith. Amelia Rogers' story teaches us that justice may arrive late, but it never fails to show up if we persevere and stay true to our conscience. In a world full of deceit, kind people are often pushed aside, but truth holds its own power. Sometimes, the most important victory is not instant success but refusing to abandon our values. Amelia didn't just reclaim her rights, she proved that compassion, determination, and belief are the greatest weapons against injustice.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.